the interior as being tan. He thought it was leather. But at any rate, he also described it being clean and there being that white ox cord. That's an exact match to what we have in this particular case, Your Honor. Everything that he described matched Henry Deacon's to a T. And then we know based on his cell phone pinging, and then I'm going to have the court look up there because I can't tell. Maybe we can see it on the screen. But I think his phone, Mr. Brink's cell phone, is hitting off that cell phone tower in the area of Kunow Implement, directionally toward the area of Kunow Implement at 4:27 a.m. in the morning. So, we've got the cell phone hitting there. We've got the area that is shown, number one, up here, where that contact occurred on Highway 61, and soil samples from after Briacia's body was recovered, and the GPS coordinates. We know of the 10 soil samples, 3 of those were inclusive of soil samples on Mr. Deacon's vehicle. There were a total of 4 soil samples taken from the undercarriage. 3 toward the rear, those were matches. 1 toward the driver's side, toward the front of the vehicle, which was not a match. That is conclusive. Then we go back to the Impala, and let's talk about the Impala. When Mr. Deacons presented himself to the Davenport Police Department, there's any number of areas that you can park right there in front of the department and walk in. When he was being interviewed by Detective Obert, he initially presents himself as having been dropped off, and that his vehicle was mobile, and that a friend had it, but didn't want to give any information about who that friend was. Then Detective Obert discerned that maybe he might have some issues with his license, and that might be why he's reluctant. He says, I'm not concerned about that at all. You know, the whole thing is about finding Briacia. And Mr. Deacon still is not willing to give information about where that vehicle is at. By virtue of the bolo that went out, patrol officers received that information over their MDTs. Officer Pojar read that bolo and happened to observe the maroon Chevy Impala parked a block down and to the north, there on Main. And then the vehicle is seized and brought to the Davenport Police Department. Jill Foster took photographs of that vehicle, and this was a topic of conversation that Ms. Foster had talked about when we went around the vehicle. There were areas on the vehicle to show that there was the spray of muddy dirt on the vehicle. And you see it along the passenger side here in those areas. The other thing that's interesting about this, and the state's going to bring this back full circle, not only do we have soil around that vehicle that's consistent with it being up in this area, but then the other thing is that child had described how there had been a machete in the trunk of the vehicle. And one of the things that Sergeant Pfeiffer had talked about when they started to remove the remains from Briacia's skeleton, or remove the branches from Briacia's skeletal remains, he noted that it looked like a knife had been used to cut branches to lay over the top of her body. And so the state throws that in there because that yet is another connection to this area up here in the area of Kunow Implement. We have Mr. Deacons with that mole right beside his nose.